Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to go over the financial markets in this video. I'm recording this on September 17th. The markets have already opened up. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go over different markets and give you my perspective on this, okay? There's a big Federal Reserve announcement that's going to be taking place soon. All right, they're meeting today and they're going to announce tomorrow. The chances are the Federal Reserve is going to lower rates. Now the question is will it be 25 basis points or 50 basis points? And my take on this is that, and I'm a contrarian on this very fact. I don't think that the Federal Reserve should lower rates. Reason being is I think that the unemployment rate needs to go higher above natural unemployment rate. Natural unemployment rate with standard economic theory is 5%. So unemployment would have to go above 5%. It's not there yet. And inflation is higher than the 2% target. So with those two data points, I wouldn't lower rates until unemployment is higher and that inflation went below the 2% target. That means that I think the Federal Reserve is making a mistake. All right, that's my take on this. I think that what they're going to be doing is going to be inflationary. All right, this is going to cause a longer term inflationary situation. Short term, what it's going to do is allow for the government to refinance debt at a lower rate. It will put a little bit of less pressure on people that have debt, revolving debt, and it will help a little bit with individuals purchasing homes. But that's short term. Now, the stock market is going to go up. All right. And individuals that are on fixed income that were needing higher yield bonds, that's going to hurt them. Okay. So I really think that the Federal Reserve is moving too fast on this. Now, I know I'm a contrarian on this topic, but I gave you the reason why. Unemployment rate is not above 5%, and natural unemployment based on just modern economic theory is 5%. And the inflation target for the Federal Reserve is 2%, and our inflation is higher than 2%. Either if you look at it at the core or total inflation, it doesn't matter, it's above 2%. All right. And you would think that you would want to be below 2%, a little bit below 2%, maybe 2 quarters before you make a move, depending on where the unemployment rate was. So I just think that it's a little too soon, and they're trying to fine tune it for the super soft landing. And I think that this is going to just kick the can down the road and cause an inflationary pressure. I'm not for the Federal Reserve raising rates or lowering rates at this time. I think they should stay where they're at. All right, they should not lower rates. I think it's a problem, but they're going, most likely they're going to lower the rate. Now the question is, will it be 25 basis points or 50 basis points? More and more people are talking about a 50 basis point move. Probably they're going to go with a 25 basis point move because they know that the unemployment rate is not above the natural unemployment. And they know that inflation is above target. So chances are they're not going to do a 50 basis point move. That's my assessment on the Federal Reserve. Now, there's different markets that you can look at to understand like where's things going here. But before I dive into that, please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, Rumble. Please subscribe to all my channels. In addition, you can follow me on X and on GETTR, so you get notifications of what I'm doing. And please help support my work Most of the videos I do are for free. I have thousands of videos for free. And if you would like to help, please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and donate. You can donate on the homepage. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. That way you're helping support my work, and my videos are for free for everybody. You can also support my work by being a paid member on my Patreon channel. The link for my website or for Patreon is in this video in the description box. So please click the link in the description box to get to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, or the Patreon channel, and be a paid member, a higher tier paid member on Patreon for my channel gets further benefits by having different level of access to my pulmonology modules and the immunology modules that I've been doing. That way you're helping support my work. You're getting some information that other people aren't getting. In addition, please go to my store and help support your health, slow down the aging process. I go into detail on how to use these supplements to slow down the aging process, have more longevity, have a better immune system. It's about proper diet, proper exercise, proper balancing. You have to exercise your mind by reading and writing and talking to people in the real world. Don't be so dependent on electrical devices like smartphones and iPads and computers. You have to be in the real world and read, all right? A real book. And challenge your mind, and proper supplementation and proper sleep. When you do all that, then you're slowing down the aging process, all right? And I go into a lot of detail about how to stack the supplements to slow down the aging process and to boost up your immune system. This is going to be very important during the cold season this year. What I am noticing with people in the New York area is that they're getting SARS-CoV-2, and it's mild. It's not, anywhere near where it needs hospitalization. But what happens is that it lingers. And if you remember, something similar happened in December and late November of 2019. There was this lingering thing going on, and no one knew really what it was. And at that time, people were saying influenza-like syndrome or influenza-like infection, all right, especially in New York. And then eventually, when the tests were available, people were testing positive for SARS-CoV-2. The point I'm making here is that many people around the United States are going to get SARS-CoV-2. And it's problematic for a multitude of reasons. There's the lingering effect that I'm seeing with many people. It doesn't happen to everybody, but you may have a minor infection, but it lingers, okay? So you might clear it, and then it comes back after a week or so. And that adds to this whole longer fatigue, all right? And it takes a longer process to heal. The problem, looking at it from an immunological perspective, is that you have different proteins that are in this virus. And that virus, those proteins can inhibit tumor suppressors. In addition, some of those proteins inhibit your immune system, all right? The S1 on the spike, the S1 will attach when cleaved. The S1 will attach to the TCR of your CD4 positive cells. So that means that it's somewhat inhibiting the CD4 positives. So your count for CD4 is okay, but your effective cells have gone down. The affected CD4 count went down. In addition, it also activates cytokine storm. It activates secretion of cytokines on these cells. So what happens is you have a local cytokine increase, pro-inflammatory cytokine increase, without the full activation of the CD4 positive cells with the infected cell that's presenting through the MHC2 class. What that means is that it kind of suppresses the immune system, yet you have a pro-inflammatory response. When that happens, it's reactivating your IgG4s, which are an immune modulator. So what happens is then you're upregulating an immune modulator that is going to bring down your immune system even further. And I think this is part of the reason why that there's a lingering effect. In addition, it is known that SARS-CoV-2 can hide in the body in different tissue, like the colon, the liver, the kidney, the adipose tissue, the macrophages. So it can kind of go into dormant. So perhaps what's happening is there's a disruption of the immune system, and there is this lingering effect because of a reservoir that isn't fully clearing the infection. Okay. This is why I keep on saying it's really important to boost up your immune system. All right. If you follow what I'm saying, you're going to be able to boost up your immune system to be able to fight pathogens better. All right. So by taking things that will bring down that pro-inflammatory response, you're cutting the signal so you're not over activating your IgG4s. If you soak up free radicals, you're reducing the stress in the cells, and therefore you have more ATP, you have better mitochondrial health, and therefore a more robust system to be able to respond to something during the cold season, right? If you contract something. In addition, it's important to neutralize pathogens and catch it in the early phase so it doesn't fester. So before we go to some of the details of the market, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver liquids that I have. I have 3 types. I have the Max 35 and Max 14. And I also have the structural nanosilver solution that's in a 35 ppm. So you take a teaspoon a day, you swish it in your mouth, you gargle with it 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it. What happens is you're neutralizing pathogens, you're improving your oral hygiene and the mucosal barrier in the back of your throat, right, down your esophagus. That's important because if you have that barrier disrupted, you are increasing the chances of getting contracting a pathogen. So it's important to neutralize and maintain the mucosal barrier. So take a teaspoon a day. I do that. I've been doing it for 4 years. Take it a day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. Okay? It's really important to swish it in your mouth, gargle, and swallow. All right. For the ones that do buy the liquid, please go to my store and get the applicator set that I offer. It has a nasal spray, a dropper, and a spritzer. This is important so you can carry it in your bag, the liquid, and just put it, so you just spray it in your nose. You can put droppers in your mouth, or spray surfaces, or spray the back of your mouth. Because what's important here to realize is that you can put this on surfaces and it will neutralize pathogens. Okay, but not just that, you can ingest it and put it and gargle and neutralize pathogens that way. So get the spritzer. In addition, I also have lozenges and drops. Now, the lozenges are a little bit bigger. They come in a 21 count per bag. Get a couple bags for your household. You can get it in Manuka honey or elderberry zinc. All right. Get a couple bags. The moment you start feeling an irritation during this cold season, start taking the lozenges or the drops to neutralize that pathogen, because this has structural nanosilver in it, and it'll create the secretions to surround the pathogen, neutralize it, and maintain that mucosal barrier. If you don't catch it early, you're increasing the chances of getting an infection. So get a couple bags of these, and the moment you start feeling an irritation, start using them, right? So that's why you should have this in your house ready to use when you need it. Because this season will be problematic. I am noticing with the lingering effects of SARS-CoV-2 this season, you're going to need these. Honey and lemon drops, blueberry drops, or cherry drops, which is a new flavor that I have on my store. So get a couple bags of it so you are ready just in case you contract something. Very high quality. They have the structural nanosilver. They'll neutralize the pathogen, and they'll create it, and you create those secretions to maintain that mucosal barrier. Really super important. Get a couple bags to make sure that you're ready, because this season is not gonna. It's not gonna be like, you know, super chaos. But if you contract, chances are it's going to linger, and it's going to affect your immune system and cause disruption with your CD4s and cause disruption with this upregulation of IgG4. And that's not what you want. You want your body to slowly heal and get those IgG4s down, and and stop that inhibition of the CD4 positive cells. All right. And that takes time. That means following the protocol that I'm telling you, and just let your body heal. But if you keep on being re-exposed, either through the inoculation or through the or through the pathogen, you're constantly resetting stuff and causing further damage to the immune system. The body needs to heal. So if you want to slowly heal the myocarditis, you got to make sure you don't have the pathogen. You got to make sure that you don't get the inoculation, and let the body heal, and just follow the protocol and bring down that inflammation response. Let the tissues heal slowly. This is not a fast thing. This takes 5 years to heal. All right. But if you constantly get re-exposed through the inoculation or the pathogen, it's slowing down the healing process. View it like this: if you hurt your knee, it's better to heal the knee before you go and play a sport, instead of, it feels a little bit better, and then you go play, and then you hurt the knee a little bit more. All right, it takes longer to heal the knee. It's the same thing with your immune system. What's going on with this? It's going to need time to heal. It's going to take about a 5-year healing process. All right, if you really want to get detailed, it's probably going to take fully a 10-year arc. But a big portion of healing the immune system is in a 5-year thing. So just be careful. All right, what I am seeing is a lingering effect, and that's problematic. All right. Also get the structural nanosilver gel. This will help to neutralize pathogens on your skin. You can put it around your mouth, around your nose, lightly coat your nostrils to maintain that mucosal barrier, around your ears, around your eyes. This is a dual purpose product. It'll neutralize pathogens. It'll create a thin barrier on your skin. That's really important. All right, so it's creating a physical barrier, and it neutralizes pathogens. All right. It can also help heal wounds, cuts, abrasions, minor burns about a third of the time quicker. How? Because it keeps the wound clean. All right, because it neutralizes pathogens. All right, and you can also apply it on your skin daily, and your skin will be clearer and tighter, especially on the face. So a lot of people will apply it at night, and then you can exfoliate in the morning. So you can use it as a daily skincare. So it's a dual purpose product. But you need this in your household to be ready. Get a couple tubes of this. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple tubes of this so you're ready for the cold season, because I'm telling you, this thing is lingering. That's not good. It's not good because of this whole CD4 and IgG4 issue. All right, so I've said my piece on that. What I want to do is, before we go to the different, well, let me start with the different markets. So you have these markets. You have like oil markets and currency markets and equity markets and bond markets, all right? And you can get an idea of stress level, all right? There's also VIX index, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first look at two currency pairs. So you have the dollar, and as the Fed raises rates, the dollar, in theory, um, if everything else is left constant, the dollar, in theory, would go up. All right. If interest rates go down, if the Fed brings down the Fed rate, then what happens is that the dollar weakens. Okay. The reason being is the Fed lowers rates and prints money. The Fed highes rates, it extinguishes money. Okay. View it that way. So you want to take a look at what's going on with the dollar relative to the euro and relative to the yen, the Japanese yen. Okay. And I always use the Japanese yen as a risk indicator. Okay. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 2 decades now for risk indicators. So if you see these charts here, let me see. Yeah. Okay. So this chart here is the euro. This one is the Japanese yen. So with the euro relative to the USD, so if the euro is, if it's going up, so that means that the euro is strengthening. Okay. So it's euro to the USD. So this is a day chart. So each candle is a day of trade, of the business day. So it's trading now at approximately 1.11. Okay. So we have a strengthening of the euro and a weakening of the dollar. All right. Throughout, there was a strengthening of the dollar from the beginning of the year, and about April, it started to go up, but there's been volatility throughout the year. All right. But there's been a big push upward where there's a weakening of the dollar starting in August. And it peaked at 1.12 at the end of August. All right. And it started selling down. The dollar was strengthening. But it has mean reverted, and now it's trading at 1.11. Chances are, when the Federal Reserve lowers its rate, the euro will increase. That's my gut feeling on this. All right, because there is at least a short-term weakening. Now, if something happens in the world, there's some geopolitical event, there may be a rush to dollars. But if we just assume that there's no no international event that takes place, then euro will increase and the dollar is going to weaken. The problem comes in is what the ECB we have a Federal Reserve, and the EU has a Federal Reserve. So the ECB, the European Bank, central bank, might tighten, might weaken. All right. If they do nothing, and it's just the Federal Reserve, which is the powerhouse of finance, not the ECB. There's more magnitude of effect on price by the Federal Reserve than the ECB. So when the Federal Reserve starts to lower rate, it's weakening the dollar a little bit. Now, if the ECB does nothing, then dollar will weaken and euro will go up. If the ECB decides to lower rate, then what will happen is that the Federal Reserve weakened the dollar, and then the ECB tried to weaken the euro, and then they try to neutralize. Most likely, the dollar will weaken more than the euro when they do that, depending on the rate changes. Okay, if the ECB decides to raise rates for whatever reason, and the Fed lowers rate, then what would happen is that the Fed lowers rate, dollar weakens. So what happens is, from the Fed's action, the euro will go up. Now, in our case, we said that the euro, let's say the ECB wanted to raise rates, they're going to increase the value of the euro relative to the dollar, so the euro would go up even more. So now you understand why it's not just the Federal Reserve lowering rate, but what other central banks do. Normally, central banks follow each other, so it doesn't have a big swing in the currency market. All right, but I suspect that the euro will go up and probably surpass the 1.12 when the Fed lowers rates. Now, if the Fed lowers at 50 basis points, the move will be stronger. If it only raises 25 basis points, the move won't be that strong. But the overall trend will probably be, I wouldn't be surprised that it goes to 120, 1.2, right? Right now, the high point was 112, right? And the Fed hasn't lowered rates yet. So, but there's this move upward, but it all depends on what the ECB does. Now we go to Japan, all right? The Japanese yen. Now, when you look at the chart, you got to look at it a little differently than the euro, because the trading pair is USD to yen, while the trading pair for euro is euro to USD. All right. So when the chart is going down, that means it's a strengthening of the yen, and all right, and a relative weakening of the dollar. All right. When this chart was going up, it's the weakening of the yen, and it's the strengthening of the dollar. All right. Since now, the yen maxed out at about 161.94. Okay. That means that was at its weakest point, and then it has been slowly strengthening because of what the BOJ has been doing. Okay, and there's this kind of this weakening. This strengthening of the yen has disturbed the trade, the carry trade. All right. Now, that was in July. Okay, I think it was July. Yeah, and that's been going down ever since. All right. That to me shows that not only is there the BOJ is affecting the market, right? But it's also a sign that there's an international weakness that's starting to build up. Okay, I've always looked at the market as if there's big moves in the yen where it's strengthening. That is a risk signal. That is a signal that there's risk building up in the financial markets. Okay, but it could be a situation that it's long lasting and it takes a while for a big event like a big sell-off in the equity market to happen. All right, but we're seeing precipitous strengthening of the yen and of the relative weakness of the dollar. When the Federal Reserve decides to lower rate, most likely what will happen is that the yen will continue to strengthen. So it's trading at about 141 right now. I wouldn't be surprised that it surpasses the 140 mark and starts trading close to 135. All right. Now, that's not going to happen in one day. This is going to be a slow change where it's moved, the yen strengthens and it's moving towards 135. All right. But this seems to me to be a signal that there is risk building up in the financial system. All right. So that's taking a look at it from the currency perspective. All right. We have the signal that euro is going up relative to the USD. and we have a signal that the yen is strengthening relative to the USD. So dollar is going to weaken, okay, as the Federal Reserve makes its move. And this looks to be that there's risk building up in the system. Now, usually when there is some event that's going to take place, some sort of credit risk event within the interbanks, or some sort of issue with big sell-off of equities, usually what will happen is the yen will strengthen and the euro will go down too. We don't have that. So we have euro going up and we have yen going up. So that's kind of like those two signals are kind of fighting each other in terms of risk buildup. So we may actually be seeing the beginnings of a risk buildup, and we haven't seen that other signal where euro starts to really go down. All right, but the point I'm making is that going from July at 161 all the way to 141 now per yen is a pretty steep move, or it's declined a lot in a short amount of time. So that doesn't sound healthy. So when the Federal Reserve starts to lower its rates, it's going to perturb the yen. Now, we'll see what happens. Will this lowering the rate perturb and cause some havoc with other central banks where they have to move? Do they strengthen? Do they raise rates? Do they lower rates? Do they stay at? So there's going to be this undulating. Once the Fed makes its move, which looks like it's going to happen tomorrow, and we don't know the magnitude of the move yet, but when they make their move, it's going to perturb the currency markets. All right, and the central banks are going to have to see how they're going to adjust, if they're going to adjust. All right, is this coordinated? Normally they coordinate, they talk and they coordinate. All right, I'm not so sure how much coordination was going on with the BOJ, with the Fed or the ECB. Another currency to look at, but I don't don't look at it that often, is the pound, the British pound to the USD. I typically look at the euro to the USD and the Japanese yen to the USD. So that's showing to me dollar's going to weaken. Now, when you lower rates, it's also going to affect the bond market. So when you lower rates, that means that, let's say you're in a fixed income instrument, like a bond or a CD, right? When the Federal Reserve lowers rates, over time, that whole curve starts to shift down. That means that if you're locked in at a high rate for, let's say, 1 year, you're okay. But when you have to revolve it in the following year, you'll have a lower rate, so your income is less. So this is going to hurt people that are retired, that are on fixed income, that are tied to bonds or CDs. So you keep that in mind. But then you have other people that are borrowing money for homes or cars. It's going to be easier because they have lower interest rates. So there are winners and losers with this. Okay. Before we go, I wanted to play a little bit of Bloomberg, but before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver toothpaste. This toothpaste is a very high quality toothpaste that whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, neutralizes pathogens, maintains and improves that gum line. As we get older, that gum line recedes. You want to maintain that and have it, grow back a little bit. So you can do that with good oral hygiene. This has no fluoride in it. It has structural nanosilver. It'll help to neutralize pathogens. And when you have good oral hygiene, you're going to improve your cardiovascular health and your valvular health. That's important. A lot of people don't realize that poor oral hygiene can affect your cardiovascular health and hurt your heart, right? Because bacteria can get into your bloodstream, cause disruption in your vascular system, and also vegetate on the valve and cause valvular damage. You don't want that. So You want to take a toothpaste that improves your oral hygiene at a very high level, at a very high and efficient level. This toothpaste is the best toothpaste you'll be able to buy. Okay, there's no other toothpaste out there that you can buy that's better than this. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a few tubes of this toothpaste. Improve your oral hygiene, and not only that, it is neutralizing pathogens because of the structural nanosilver. And that's going to be really important during the cold season. Trust me. All right. So please go to the store and get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Now, what I want to do is I want to play a little bit of Bloomberg as we just drop in. This is playing live, so let's see what they have to say here.
Gold changed up 16, up less than 0.1%. NASDAQ up 49, a gain there of 0.3%. S&P record, by the way, 56.67. Right now we've got the S&P at 56.38. 10-year yield 5.64%, with a 2-year currently yielding at 3.59%. Gold down $16 the ounce, lower by 0.6%. 25.65 right now, retreating from a record, while West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 2.5%, 71.87 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. The numbers are in on American retail sales, and they are lackluster. With that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Giudice.
Retail sales eked out a 0.1% increase in August, though July's gain was revised a bit higher. Online sales outdid mixed results elsewhere last month. Receipts at service stations dipped, reflecting lower gasoline prices. Going into today's retail sales report, economists surveyed by Bloomberg anticipated an overall decline. Vinny Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Retailers, we got Amazon up by 1.2%. It is a mixed bag. Walmart shares, they are down now by 2.2%. Macy's up 1.1%. Target down by 0.6%. Private equity investor Steve Pagliuca is discussing a takeover of Red Star FC. That is the Paris-based football club whose fans have previously railed against capitalist owners. Again, recapping, S&P now a little change, up barely, up now by 2 points, a gain of just about 0.1%. 10-year yield right now is at 3.64%. For online on-demand news, 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now, wherever you get your podcasts. Balance of Power continues. Once again, your host, here is Joe Matthew.
Wouldn't be Balance of Power without Charlie Pellet on the markets. Charlie, thank you so much. Live from New York. We'll get back to Charlie a little bit later on this hour to keep tabs on things. This Tuesday, welcome to Balance of Power. We're live in Washington with our eyes now turning to the campaign trail. We spent the better part of this program so far, the last 40 minutes, looking at geopolitics, the gyrations in Congress, the start of a Federal Reserve meeting, as we're reminded that we're less than 7 weeks out here from a presidential election. Some folks actually voting early by mail in some small areas around the country. There'll be a lot more where that came from in the coming weeks. Following what happened on the golf course Sunday, Donald Trump is not only back on the campaign trail today, but he is not altering the travel schedule at all after the apparent second attempt on his life in 2 months. He'll be in Flint, Michigan today, town hall event with fairly easy crowd here. His former press secretary going to be interviewing him, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, of course, the governor of Arkansas. Then it's on to New York tomorrow, Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, and an event with a pro-Israel group on Thursday here in Washington, D.C. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz work in the swing states as well. She's in Philadelphia for the NABJ. That's the National Association of Black Journalists. Remember what happened when Donald Trump went to the NABJ. So a lot of folks are watching that. It starts about 2 hours from now. At JD Vance, Tim Walz in Wisconsin and Georgia, respectively. With new polls out now, this is the important part of what we have today. Since the debate, there have been a couple of small samples. These are the first major polls we have seen since the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, coming with courtesy here of Suffolk University. And I'll start with that one, if I may. Suffolk got in the field right after the debate and held several separate polls as a matter of fact here, which we're going to be talking about. A trio of Suffolk University USA Today polls finds Kamala Harris leading 49 to 46% in Pennsylvania specifically. That is within the margin, though, which is important to mention here. We've got a separate poll from Morning Consult. Kamala Harris jumping to a 6-point lead over Trump following the presidential debate. That's nationally. A majority of likely voters here, including 1 in 5 Republicans, also believe Kamala Harris won the debate. Let's assemble our signature panel. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano looking at the polls and the trail for us. Of course, Bloomberg Politics contributors. Jeannie, a political science professor at Iona University. Rick Davis, partner at Stone Court Capital. Great to see you both. Jeannie, your thoughts on the numbers here? There was a big question about whether there'd be a post-debate bump for Kamala Harris. When you see these numbers within the margin, can we say there was such a thing?
I still go back to the fact that we are within the margin. And so she seems to have gotten, when you ask people who performed better, she seems to have won on that question. But whether that translates into an I will vote for Kamala Harris in the end is a quite different story. And I'm not convinced we are seeing that. That said, looking at these numbers, you'd rather be Kamala Harris than Donald Trump at this point. The numbers are moving in the right direction for Kamala Harris. You mentioned this USA Today, Suffolk University trio of polls for Pennsylvania, a must-win state for both of these candidates. And her favorables are much more impressive than his. And her numbers with women, she's up like 17 with women. And he's up with men, but not by as much. So you add that together, and then you look at the counties that they looked at, those bellwether counties, and she's on the right trajectory, but again, within the margin of error. So too close to call, but if you had to choose based on these numbers, you'd probably rather be in her position today.
All right, Rick, I wonder your take specifically on the counties that Jeannie mentions. You've been through this before enough times. Northampton and Erie counties with a slight lead over Donald Trump tells you what when you get into the granular here?
It's a math formula for Harris. How much can she run up the totals in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh before you get outside the suburbs? And for Trump, it's that Lehigh Valley and Western Pennsylvania where he's really got to make his mark. And I must admit, I was more surprised by the margins in Western Pennsylvania than anything else in this poll. I would have thought it was much closer. That is Trump country. And the fact that he's still, 4 or 5 points behind Hispanic community in the East, very strongly for Harris. He's regained all the...
I have never seen Bloomberg's TV or radio say anything positive about Trump during this election cycle.
Yeah, I have absolutely no doubt based on these numbers that the election were today, it'd be a 1% race all over again.
Boy, and when you see 5% of statewide poll respondents calling themselves undecided, Jeannie, that's the way this ends, right? This is going to be decided by a whisker.
Absolutely right. 5% undecided. There is a scramble to get those voters to your side. And we should underscore why Pennsylvania is so important, especially for Kamala Harris. If she's able to squeak out a win in Pennsylvania, she's likely going to have a better shot in Michigan, Wisconsin. I think it's been since the late 1980s. All 3 of those blue states have voted in concert in these presidential elections. She doesn't need any of those other battleground states to win. So her path to 270 goes right through Pennsylvania. Are there other ways to do it? Yes, but it's tough. Out of all these battleground states we talk about, Pennsylvania has the largest number of electoral votes at 19. And of course, Donald Trump needs to win it as well. And, just to go back a few weeks, this is why her decision to forego Josh Shapiro on the ticket with her in favor of Tim Walz is such a big decision on her part. If she gosh, ends up losing Pennsylvania, I think that's gonna be the big question people come back to. Did she make a mistake in not choosing the very popular governor of Pennsylvania? You know, there's no right or wrong there, but she's gonna find out on election day.
She sure is. This is something we've all been asking. Of course, we should note these polls came out after the debate, but did not.
It's such a stupid phrase. She's going to find out, during the election night. Well, no kidding. 100% short putts never hit the hole. I mean, some people just say stuff that are just so common sense. But they didn't mention independents are tracking with Republicans, not Democrats, on the average. When you were looking during the debate, when they were having that dial, and you can see that dial and reaction curves, independents were tracking closer to Republicans. That means the majority of the people that aren't decided yet, that are independent at this moment in time, the majority of them are going to be voting in line with Republicans. That means that Trump is actually a little bit better off than Harris. So if that holds in Pennsylvania and Michigan, then Trump wins.
As well, he called Kamala Harris a fascist and said that if she was elected, it would be the end of the country. So when J.D. Vance talks about a double standard and he says it's amplified by the Democrats' media, how should we respond to that?
Look, I think we've seen this play all over again. It wasn't, 2 or 3 days after the initial assassination attempt that came incredibly close to taking Donald Trump's life that the Republican attack machine went in full overload, right? There was this concept that maybe there'd be a unity play at the convention, but that paled in comparison to the attack play. And that hasn't changed. Look, let's just talk a little bit about campaign strategy. Donald Trump is not going to increase his ballot 1 percentage point. He hasn't done it in 2 other election cycles. He's going to hover around 46 or 47%. There is zero evidence that he can go beyond that, which means that if he wants to win, he's got to bring Kamala Harris down below him. So it's not about selling anything for Donald Trump. It's about attacking Kamala Harris. And at least there's a self-awareness in this tactic that Vance understands that and isn't going to try and appeal to swing voters in any positive way. He's going to try and pollute the turf so that people are afraid of the Democrats, are afraid of Kamala Harris, are afraid of Tim Walz. And that's going to be the Republican game plan for the next 45 days. And the reality is that has some evidence in the past to be effective. So the Democrats are going to have to be able to employ an effective strategy to counter that.
Jeannie, I want to hear from you on this. J.D. Vance talks about Springfield as well in this very long tweet. He says, citizens are telling us there are problems, undeniable truths of higher car accidents, unaffordable housing, evictions of residents, overcrowded hospitals. They also include the infamous pet stories, he says, which again, multiple people have spoken about either on video or to me and my staff. The governor of Ohio, Governor DeWine, has dispatched the state police now to Springfield to try to keep people safe, or at least make them feel that way, with now a total of 33 bomb threats targeting city schools. Producer James just put another one in front of me here. A local university has had to cancel all athletic events because of it. J.D. Vance is blaming a double standard in the media for this. Jeannie, is there some truth to it?
What's so stunning about this is that J.D. Vance, these are his constituents. And you have to scratch your head and ask, if this has been going on for so long, where has J.D. Vance been for so many years when this has been going on? He is the sitting senator of Ohio. And so this is a question that has to be asked. And you see DeWine, you see other Republicans in Ohio trying to tone down the rhetoric, but you see J.D. Vance joining Donald Trump in amping it up. And I think this is a reaction to the numbers we are seeing. Let's face it, Donald Trump had a bad debate performance. He's doubling down on things like, Haitian immigrants eating cats and animals and pets. because he is trying to do what Rick was talking about, gin up his base to get out to vote and trying to blame the Harris team and Harris Biden for what's going on in immigration. That's what's happening. And JD Vance is going right down the track with it. Yes, we can blame the media, all of us for a lot of things, but JD Vance has his own voice. And if he wants to talk about rhetoric, he should stick to policy and the facts. And he should talk about immigration in a sound way. There's a lot to say, but talking about something that's not happening, which he admitted to Dana Bash on CNN this weekend, because he's trying to drive interest, is hardly the work of a responsible leader or a senator of the state of Ohio.
The post I mentioned has been viewed over 15 million times. The first reply of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He says, "Proud of you, JD." JD Vance replying to him, "Thanks, man." Rick and Jeannie back with us in our second hour.
All right, so let me go to the market here. This is the S&P 500 ETF. It's called SPY. All right, but the whole idea here is that there are resistance points and support levels. Now, as of this recording, SPY is trading at 562. The high point is 566. I've been saying that the end of the year is a big probability that it's going to be at 580, maybe even 600. All right, that means it's going to be higher. We're at a triple top. All right, so we had the first top sold off. That was the relatively recent sell-off, and then it went tested, didn't surpass, and then came back down a little bit. Now it's retesting, so it's a triple top. With the Federal Reserve most likely lowering rates, that is usually more money's in the system. It costs less to loan out. Banks can finance, do lower interest, interbank lending, and all this stuff. Chances are the equity market is going to go up. All right. And we're going to, now maybe when the Federal Reserve lowers rates, maybe there's going to be some volatility and it'll go up and down. But the overall trend in the next few days to the rest of the year, assuming no other major crisis in the world, most likely the equity market, the S&P 500, is going to be at an all-time high. All right. So the resistance points that we have right now, obviously, are the 566, which is the highest that it's been. And there's going to be another resistance level at about 580 for S&P 5 for SPY, the ETF for the S&P 500, and there's going to be another one at about 600. The reason why 600 is that is a big psychological barrier because of the double zero. 580 is, we're near the end of the year and we're at the 560 mark. Give it another 20 points. It's going to go undulate up and down. But those are kind of like three resistance points: 566, 580, 600. All right. But we have to analyze over time, once the Fed lowers the rate, how this microstructure starts to develop in the trade. And I'll look at that over time. Now, in terms of support levels, there's a support level at obviously the 500. All right. There's a support level at the 500 because it's a psychological support level, double zero. But there's one a little bit higher than that at about the 512 mark. Okay. So there's a support level at 512, a psychological support level at 500. This is if the market starts to go down, which I don't think it will. And then there's another major support level at the 582, 583 mark because of the overlap between small Fibonacci and the larger Fibonacci. The large Fibonacci starts from the low point when the crash of COVID happened. in 2020, all the way to the high point of SPY. And the small Fibonacci sequence is when the bull market starts, this new bull market starts to the high point. All right. So when you have an overlap of fib retracements, then that's a very strong support level or resistance level, depending on how you're looking at it. In this case, we have a major resistance point at 483. All right. Now we have another major resistance point at the 440 mark or so. That would have to, a big sell-off or a bear market would have to start to ensue for it to be testing that. So most likely, that's a strong, very strong support level, but that most likely won't be tested unless we go into a bear market. But with the Federal Reserve lowering rates, it's going to be hot money. It's going to flow into the equity market, and there's a higher probability of testing 600 than going to 440. So again, resistance points, 600, 580, and 566. Support level, 512, 500, 482, 483, and the 440 mark or so. Those are major support levels. So the equity market is most likely going to rally in the near term after the Federal Reserve announcement. Now, another indicator that I look at is the VIX index. No, I don't have it here. Okay, the VIX index, I'll just put it in. The VIX index is really important to take a look at on a day chart, on over a year, a day, or maybe multiple years. Let's see. Day chart and go over like a 10-year period. All right. And you can kind of see these undulations, right? And that's, you have spikes in risk. So VIX index is a risk indicator. And it spikes, it means more risk and there's going to be a market sell-off. Okay. And depending on what the risk is, dollar may be going up, maybe going down, oil may be going up or maybe going down, but usually if it's a big spike, that means that there's a big sell-off that's happening in the equity market. All right. And you have these spikes, right? Well, when we look at the year to day chart, we had a big spike back in August at 65. That's a very high spike, all right? And then it came back down. And it's trading at about 17. That's low volatility, all right? So right now, we have low volatility going into a Fed announcement, all right? And remember what I said, high volatility means lower, it means sell-off in the equity market. We're at a low VIX level. So as we're going into a Fed announcement tomorrow, that means that this is low risk. It's risk taking. That's signaling risk taking. So this equity, the equities, this is telling me that the ones that the option crowd, the future crowd, is expecting that the market is going to go up, that the S&P 500 is going to go up. All right. So that's another way to kind of analyze risk. All right. So dollar's weakening. All right, because of the Federal Reserve pumping more money into the system, right? Lowering rates, right? And that money is going to flow to the banks and they're going to move it into the equity market. Supposedly, people will have more disposable income. So because they're paying less on credit interest, and you'll have analysts that will try to pump up the market. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be one way upward. It's going to be undulating. It's going to be up and down, but the trend is going to be up. You have low VIX, so that's showing to me that you don't really have that much of a don't have that much of a problem. So that's the VIX. So we went over VIX is low and went over the resistance points and the support levels on SPY for the S&P 500. Looks like it's going up. All right, let's drop back into Bloomberg to see what they're saying. But before we do that, just doing a product plug here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. And go and get my citrus deodorants and the peppermint, lavender, and tea tree deodorants. All right, this is made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It's all natural. It has no aluminum. It has no baking soda in it. It's all natural. It's a dual purpose product. You use it as a deodorant. It's for males and females, and it'll also help to detoxify your body, which is really important because we have a lot of chemicals in our environment. We have issues with stuff in our water, in the processed foods, and even in the air that we breathe because of the chemtrails. So it's important to detoxify your body. So get this very high quality deodorant, get a couple bars for your household. It's for males and females. You can get it in citrus or peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now we've been talking about detoxification. I also have a great product that does wonders for detoxification, and that is zeolite. Take zeolite. This is a molecule that's negative. It's a negatively charged molecule that soaks up positively charged molecules. It'll soak up toxins, heavy metals, and chemicals. Right? It'll soak up those PFAS and PFAS. So forever chemicals. So what you want to do is stop the ingestion of these toxins and these chemicals, and then detoxify your body by taking things like zeolite and even NAC. But first thing you do is filter your water. So stop getting those chemicals into your drinking water. So filter your water. Now I use a zero water filtration system, which is a 5-level filtration system. There's other ways to do it, but I use a zero water filtration system. In addition, what you want to do is before you filter the water, you want to boil your water first. So you take the tap water, you boil it, let it cool down, and then filter the cooled down water into the zero water. Okay, that's how I do it. The reason why I boil the water is, one, you are sterilizing, right, any bacteria or whatever that possibly could be in the water. In addition, there are microclays that can bind to chemicals. All right, when you boil. All right, and when you do that, it's kind of binding some of the chemicals, and then whatever's left in the water gets filtered out through the zero water filtration system. Okay, so you are getting a lot of those chemicals out of the water, including the forever chemicals. In addition, you want to stop eating processed foods and heavily pesticized foods. That way you aren't ingesting it. You're not eating those foods that have these forever chemicals. All right, so stop it. Stop eating bad food. All right. When you do that, now you are lowering the level of intake of toxin. Now what you want to do is cleanse your body of the toxins that have built up over the years. So this is why you would take zeolite. All right. Just take a few drops underneath your tongue and swallow. Swallow with some water, filtered water. All right. It'll remove heavy metals, chemicals, and toxins. You can take this year round. The type of zeolite that I offer is a year round zeolite. You can take it year round. If you're on medication, you need to talk to your healthcare provider, your doctor, before you take zeolite. The reason being is that zeolite may inhibit some of your medication because it'll think it's that the zeolite may bind to that medication and bring down the actual dosage. So your doctor may have to increase your dosage if you're going to detoxify your body with your, if you're on medication. If you're not on medication, you don't have to worry about it. It's only if you are on medication, like heart medication or diabetes medication or whatever. If you are on medication, talk to your doctor first before you take zeolite, right? Because you don't want to inhibit your medication. But the ones that are not on medication, go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite and detoxify your body. All right. It's really important because a lot of people have, over the years, especially when you get into your 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, you have accumulated a lot of toxins just from the environment. So please go to the store and get the zeolite and detoxify your body. And another thing that I'd like to bring up here is we need to boost up our immune system, especially in the aftermath of 2020. Take lignans. It's a powder. You have a little scooper. You take a scooper. You mix it with your food or with water. This will help to boost up the immune system, but it also helps with your hormonal system. All right. A lot of people don't realize that our immune system is down, and because of the chemicals that are around us, it affects our endocrine system. So lignans will help to prevent that disruption. So it's for males and females. Boost up your immune system. It's really important. We're starting to hear turbo cancers and all this stuff. It's really important to boost up your immune system. So please go to my store and get the lignans and take it every day. All right. I give you some great ideas that you should be following to help boost up your health. Omega-3 helps with cholesterol. How does it help with the cholesterol levels, your lipid profile? It brings down LDL and it raises the HDL levels. Now, when you do that, that means that you're reducing the chances of cardiovascular disease. And omega-3 also keeps those red blood cells from sticking together. All right. That means you won't clot as much. And people have problems clotting because people have problems with too many clots because of the crisis that we went through in 2020. So it's important to take omega-3 to help with overclotting and also to improve your lipid profile. So you should be taking omega-3 every day. I take omega-3. So please go to your store, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3 and boost up your immune system and follow the protocol that I've been doing. A lot of people can't sleep. Why? Because they're afraid the market's going to crash or whatever. And the market's not going to crash. It's going up. So you should be able to sleep a little bit easier. What might crash is the dollar. but Good Night formula is great. So you can have 3 cycles of REM sleep, deep sleep. You'll be well rested. You'll be able to consolidate memory, and you're detoxifying your body because you need proper sleep to detoxify your body. One of the main pillars for anti-aging is proper sleep on a regular basis. When you have proper sleep on a regular basis, you're gonna be able to mitigate some of the problems with age-related dementia. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night formula. Take it every day if you're having problems sleeping. All right. It has tryptophan and melatonin in it. It's safe to take. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night formula. It's really important because they'll slow down the aging process, they'll get rid of those toxins, and you're gonna mitigate the chances of getting age-related dementia.
I think we should be focusing in on, or the biggest policy debates that this country needs to have, primarily, how do we bring costs down so families can afford the things that they need? And how do we secure the US-Mexico border? Because the broken border is having real and serious consequences in my home state of Wisconsin and in states across the country. The more we're having a robust conversation on the policy issues in front of us, the better we are as a country. As we allow the dialogue to turn into other things, it's far less productive for our democracy.
Congressman, as you're there in the Capitol, of course, you are looking at getting a floor vote today on a bill you brought forward, Protecting Americans' Retirement Savings from Politics Act. You want to rein in with this bill, sir, proxy advisors. Why?
I'm very concerned about the significant role that proxy advisors have. The United States has a clear duopoly where about 97% of all proxy advisor services are provided by two firms. They're not properly regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. We saw Chairman Gensler gut and remove Chairman Clayton's bill on this. I have brought forward legislation that says we should not only regulate them, we should make sure that Americans understand if these institutions have conflicts of interest. I've been concerned that these institutions, working with liberal groups, have worked to weaponize Americans' retirement accounts. This is an opportunity to stand up for good governance, to stand up for proper regulation of outside entities, and at the end of the day, to make sure we're protecting American retirement accounts that have shares being voted on by institutional investors.
Well, that's important to our audience here at Bloomberg. Congressman, do you have co-signers? What kind of support do you have for this bill?
We have broad support. We passed it through committee with full Republican support. I think we have an opportunity as we bring it to the House floor this week to pick up Democratic votes. There's no reason that ISS and Glass Lewis, which have such a significant impact on the voting of shares across the board for American publicly traded companies, shouldn't be properly regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And in particular, both of these institutions should have to disclose if they have a conflict of interest. That is one of my biggest concerns with both of these institutions, who are advising countless institutional investors on how to vote. They're not currently disclosing their conflicts of interest. The Securities and Exchange Commission should require that, and my bill does that.
Just quickly, Congressman, on conflicts of interest, Donald Trump last night was out endorsing the project of members of his family, World Liberty Financial, getting into the crypto business more materially. Do you worry about conflicts of interest there if he actually becomes president?
Well, he's a private citizen. He's allowed to engage in private business activities while he's a private citizen. Anybody that's in elected office follows the ethics rules of their given office, as I would in the House, as a senator would, or as a president would. What I'm focusing on in my legislation is in particular making sure that we're regulating appropriately American publicly traded companies. We're not allowing individuals to have those conflicts of interest that aren't fully disclosed to the American people.
Congressman, it's good to have you back. I'm completely out of time. 25 or 50 tomorrow by the Fed.
All of the data, and they're led by the data, not by politics.
There it is. Ooh, I think I know what you meant. Brian Stile, the congressman from Wisconsin, the Republican view on a number of issues. It's great to have you back, sir, with us on Bloomberg TV and radio. Around this time, Kaylee, we're going to be winding up to special coverage of the Fed meeting. Of course, you can always count on us. We'll have much.
Here's an idea. Why not work where you can be you? Where new skills can lead to.
Well, we're waiting for them to cycle in. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric that I offer. This is an antioxidant, soaks up free radicals, but it also brings down inflammation. That's important to boost up your immune system. So take turmeric to boost up your immune system. It's synergistic with ashwagandha. Ashwagandha root helps to control your blood glucose levels. It helps to control your cortisol levels, and it will bring down that inflammatory response. When you take these together, it actually will help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system, because you're bringing down that inflammatory response in your vascular system and in your overall tissue. That's really important. All right. I told you, that people are having problems with their immune system, and that they're not fully clearing the infection. All right. Why? I explained what the mechanism was. The S1 inhibiting CD4 positives and creating this pro-inflammatory cytokines to upregulate IgG4. All right. When you stop that by bringing down inflammation, you're allowing your immune system to heal. All right. Turmeric and ashwagandha brings down inflammation. By bringing down inflammation, you're boosting up your immune system. You're allowing your immune system to heal so you can properly fight infection. Chronic inflammation in your gut or in your other tissues cause your immune system to go down. It doesn't work as well. It's really important to take turmeric and ashwagandha every day. And when you're healthy and you have a robust immune system, you'll start to notice that keeping that inflammation down actually is slowing down the aging process and giving you more longevity. So please go to my store, get the turmeric and the ashwagandha root. To also boost up your immune system, you need vitamin C with magnesium. If you're not feeling well during the cold season, take a double dose of this, drink it with filtered water. In addition, vitamin C helps with your skin. So please go to my store and get the vitamin C. Clarity factor helps to get rid of the brain fog, keeps those neurons firing and have good connection. That means that you can think faster and you'll maintain memory and be able to produce more memory, all right, and slow down the aging of your neurons. You know, neurons start to weaken because the mitochondrial health goes down, the neural connections are weak and they recede, and you start thinking slower, you can't form memory as well. By taking turmeric and the other things that I offer, like C60 and ubiquinol and the NAD+, when you improve your mitochondria, when you improve your overall neural health, and you maintain those neural connections and improve those neural connections, you're going to actually age slower neurologically. All right. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. It'll allow you to focus at work or in school, but it will also, when you stack it, like I'm telling you, you're gonna improve the overall mental acuity as you get older. So please go to my store and get the clarity factor.
$5.64 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude advancing another 2%, now at $71.52 a barrel. Stocks are struggling near records ahead of the Fed's rate decision tomorrow. Traders split on the size of a central bank cut. Microsoft raising its quarterly dividend 10%. It has unveiled a new $60 billion stock buyback program, matching the size of a repurchase plan 3 years ago. Microsoft shares, they're advancing now by 0.7%. Meanwhile, Microsoft and G42 are establishing 2 AI centers in Abu Dhabi months after they inked a $1.5 billion deal, and the United Arab Emirates firm agreed to divest from China. Recapping stocks trading mixed, S&P 500 index down 2 points, little change, down just under 0.1%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. Balance of Power continues. Back to go to Washington. Once again, your hosts, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lyons.
All right, Charlie Pellet in New York. Thank you so much. Kaylee Lyons and Joe Matthew here in Washington. Meanwhile, the campaign trail is everywhere today for the presidential and vice presidential nominees for the Republican and Democratic parties. We've got them all spread out. Kamala Harris, just about an hour from now, will be sitting down in Philadelphia with members of the National Association of Black Journalists for an interview, of course, following the one that Donald Trump did earlier this summer that led to some negative attention surrounding his questioning of her racial identity. Meanwhile, Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, is going to be in 2 swing states today, Georgia this morning, then heading to North Carolina, while J.D. Vance is going to be in Michigan, as will Donald Trump. He has a town hall this evening in Flint, Michigan, moderated by his former press secretary and the governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And this will be another opportunity to hear from him in the aftermath of the second attempt on his life this past week.
He's not been holding back this time, blaming Democrats, even naming Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. for their rhetoric, spawning what he says, bullets flying here. And I suspect that that will come up this evening, even though it has been confirmed that Joe Biden requested and delivered additional Secret Service protection for Donald Trump while he was on the golf course on Sunday. We're hearing a lot about double standards right now, and this is a real face-off, a rhetorical. I hope it stays a rhetorical face-off between the two campaigns right now, because both are saying a lot. J.D. Vance with this very long tweet, hundreds of words long, calling out Kamala Harris for suggesting that Donald Trump would be the end of democracy. He says the gunman acted on those words. But of course, Donald Trump has frequently called Kamala Harris a fascist who would be the end of the country, which sounds a lot like that same line.
Yeah, they both have tried to cast each other as the greatest threat to democracy. The question, I guess, moving forward through the remaining 49 days of this presidential campaign is whether their language and rhetoric might change as a result of heightened threats that we clearly see evident in multiple attempts on the Republican nominee's life.
We turn to Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano for insights here. It's not an easy conversation, and it's difficult to tell where we're going, but it's an important moment here in American politics. She is political science professor at Iona University. He is partner at Stone Court Capital. And Jeannie, I'll start with you because J.D. Vance has had the last salvo here. I guess Donald Trump did last evening in his crypto rollout, talking about the role that Democrats have played in their rhetoric on the campaign trail. But we have to acknowledge both sides here, right?
That's right. And I wanted to say happy Constitution Day to you guys. It is Constitution Day. And as I'm listening to you go off about politics and American politics today, it's good to remember that it was September 17th that they signed the Constitution in Philadelphia. An important federal day to remember. But J.D. Vance has, sort of repeated what Donald Trump has been saying on Truth Social. I agree that, this rhetoric, we've heard it, it's intensified on both sides. And I think one of the stunning things is what a big difference this is from what happened after the first shooting attempt on Donald Trump, when, the Harris campaign took some of their ads off of the air. Donald Trump talked about having a reawakening, and there was much more talk about unity. Perhaps it's because we don't see the shot, we don't see a video. Perhaps it's because the gunman never got a shot off. It's hard to say why. Perhaps it's because we're fewer days now until the election, but none of that has happened this time. Both sides.
You know what? The Democratic Party literally has been calling down J. Trump Hitler, all right, which is wrong. We have balance of power, all right? Trump is not going to become a dictator. It's impossible, all right? The Supreme Court has as much power as the executive branch. The executive branch has as much power as the Supreme Court or the legislative branch, and the legislative branch has the same power as the executive or the judicial. They're equal branches of government. You can't have it wouldn't happen. Can't have this dictatorship that they're talking about. All right. That's the wisdom of the ones that signed the Constitution. Oh, by the way, one of my ancestors actually signed the Constitution from New Jersey. But either way, all right. But the thing is that they don't talk about the lawfare. What about the crazy lawfare and how the national security state, that's deep state, going after him? He has to be forceful against Biden's administration and Harris's campaign, because the deep state is going after him to try to prevent him from being in office because they're scared of him. Now, why are they scared of him? It's not because he's going to be a dictator. It's because he doesn't follow the same playbook. That's why. It's not about dictatorship.
Rhetoric about the future of our country and the incredible capability that the American people possess to create change. Get out of the way of a good electorate and let them think about something positive for a change rather than the petty rhetoric that we see being thrown around today.
Well, we do appreciate the spirit of that message, Rick. The fact of the matter is here, Jeannie, the situation in Springfield, Ohio continues to deteriorate. Governor DeWine is sending state police into the town today, a contingent of 36 troopers. We now count more than 30 bomb threats against schools. A local university there, as we were discussing earlier, Wittenberg, had already moved to all remote classes this week and has now canceled all home and away athletic events this week. Donald Trump says he's going to go to Springfield. Should Kamala Harris as well?
No, I don't think either one of them should go. I think they should listen to the Republican governor, DeWine. I think they should listen to the mayor. These are people who have begged them to tone down the rhetoric, because as you're just talking about, the real life implications on people in that town or city, people who work there, people who live there, it is very disruptive to their lives. I mean, you have people who have been scared to go outside, who have been scared to go around in the city, who feel that they may be under attack. You have threats of violence and bombings. This is no way to live. If we want to have a discussion about immigration, and we should, it shouldn't have to be on the backs of lies to get attention on the issue. And so this is where I don't think Kamala Harris should go there, and I don't think Donald Trump should go. But of course, Joe, I'm not sure he's going to listen to me either. So I may just be talking into the wind here.
Well, Jeannie, as we discussed where Kamala Harris should go, I also wonder where you think the vice president should go today in her conversation with the National Association of Black Journalists. It was, of course, an NABJ conference interview that Donald Trump took part in, where things got combated and he questioned her racial identity, whether she was an Indian or Black American, if she was just switching between the two as it suited her. She hasn't really wanted to engage in that conversation. She did touch on it perhaps a bit more on the debate stage than we've seen her do in the weeks since he first said those things. But is she going to be able to avoid that in this conversation in a similar forum today, or does she need to address it head on?
You know, I think if she's asked, she can address it. But to your point, Kaylee, she has really steered away from identity politics. And I think in this election and in this election environment, she should focus on issues that matter to people. That is economic security, that is their safety, that is jobs, that is inflation. You know, you've been talking a lot.
I have to pause, even though this is live. Her economic policy is to tax you to death. She's in office. How's she going to change the inflation? She should have changed it during her time in office. And safety. She's an empty suit. Whatever the national security state wants is what she's going to push. She's an empty suit. What's her foreign policy? What's her real foreign policy? I don't know. She's cut from the cloth of socialism. She's a socialist. She's a Marxist. She's worse than
about what's going to
socialist.
be happening tomorrow. The calendar is so important for the Harris campaign. Tomorrow can be a very good day for them. And if I was her or I was advising her, I would say, focus on the economy and talk about what you're going to do to address the high cost of living. That is the number one concern people have, along with inflation. And tomorrow may be a very good day for you to underscore the work that the Biden campaign or the Biden White House has done and what you plan to do differently going forward. So I think that's much more important than the identity politics. But she may get asked to respond certainly to what Donald Trump said in that when he was talking to that group, you know, a few months ago.
With that said, Rick, Politico is reporting that both running mates, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, will address the Business Roundtable this week. J.D. Vance or spokesperson has confirmed that'll be Thursday morning. We're waiting to hear about the Walz address. This is pretty interesting. An important group here, of course. We talked earlier when Donald Trump and Joe Biden were addressing that group. Of course, Joe Biden sent a surrogate. They originally invited Kamala Harris. She's decided to send her running mate instead.
Because she doesn't know how to talk about the economy.
I mean,
That's the
if you
big
don't
problem.
like your principal, Kamala Harris, basically doing an opposite speech with a vice presidential running mate of Donald Trump. The reality is Donald Trump did this and was highly unsuccessful, by all measures from the participants who came out saying that they couldn't really even understand what he was talking about. I don't think it's that big a deal. They don't really have a constituency, maybe money, but I'm pretty confident that by now both campaigns have mined that money opportunity within the participants there pretty well. But I do think it's very worthy of her time to make statements and speeches about the economy. We're not home free. There's an opportunity even this week with the Fed's decision on rates to maybe have some wind at her back. And frankly, I'd want to be there beforehand, not after the fact, talking about how the economy is improving and interest rates have the potential of coming down. So I'm actually surprised she wouldn't use an opportunity like this to at least do something, regardless of whether it's with the members of the roundtable or somewhere in a targeted state that obviously has been affected by high inflation.
All right, Rick Davis, Stonecourt Capital partner, and Jeannie Shanzano of the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress. Thank you both so much for joining us, our Bloomberg Politics contributor, signature political panel, especially for teasing ahead to tomorrow's big event, the Fed decision, the only time we could see a rate cut prior to the November election.
It'll be right around this time tomorrow. We're handing
Indeed.
things over to special coverage. Stay with us, a lot more ahead on Balance of Power.
All right, so I want to talk about oil. All right, this curve here is the oil curve over. It's a daily chart, and it's over a year period, roughly, and it's undulated from 95 to the low point of 65. All right, so it's undulated up and down. But there's been a recent trend to be trading at about 85, and it's around 85, and it's been going down and then up a little bit and then down, but it's trending down, and it's been trending down since July. All right, second week of July or so. And the overall trend is downward with some undulations up and down, but overall downward. Probably a few weeks ago, the trading range was around 85 to about 70, probably 74 or so, right? Maybe 75. So 85 to 75. But it has, that range has shifted, I've noticed. And it's because there's more oil on the market, all right? But then there are other cross variables that are taking place. OPEC is deciding to, keep their particular production level at its, at its current amount, and not cut, but not increase. So, so the whole point here is that there's been a kind of a shift, a trading range shift. It used to be about 4 weeks ago, maybe at around 85 to about 75, but that has shifted down. Now, to me, it seems as though that new shift is at about, I want to say about a 72. This is kind of fine tuning this process, and it's starting to evolve. And it'll be interesting in how the Fed's announcement tomorrow will change this. But it seems to be trading at about 71 or 72 to about 65, 66. So around 71 to 66 trading range. All right. Now it's currently trading just above 71, 71.50. So it's testing that 70, 72. Now, when you weaken the dollar, normally oil will go up, assuming nothing else changed, like the number of barrels on the market, geopolitical risk, whatever, all right? Because just the only variable that changes is the dollar strength or weakness. weakening of the dollar will make oil go up. So I suspect that assuming there's nothing that happens in the Middle East, nothing changes with OPEC, nothing changes with further deterioration of China's economy, I suspect that there's going to be a little bit of a shift up with this trading range. So instead of it trading from 71 to 66, it may shift up to maybe 77 or 78 to maybe 73. All right. So there might be a little bit of a shift up, maybe even going closer to 75. And if it goes closer to 75, then you're probably going 75 to maybe 68 trading range. But we have to see how that evolves. Now, oil is extremely volatile, and it's hard. You can't really use fib sequences because there's so much volatility that it doesn't really lend itself to that kind of structure like you would see with equity markets. It's hard to do fib sequences with the oil market. It can be done, but it's not as accurate, right? Because there's so many variables and event risk. Plus, you have OPEC, and there's government intervention and all this. There's too much intervention that takes place. So it's you kind of just have to kind of surf the price curve as it's evolving, and you get a feel for the range. So the range, the intuitive range that I have right now is around 71 to about 66. All right. But with this Fed announcement cutting rates, I think it's going to shift up. Now the question is, how much will it shift up? Will it shift up, to about 72 or 73 to about 77? I'm sorry, 72 or 73 to 67 as a range, a trading range? Or will it go to about 75 to about 68 as a trading range? I'm not really sure. It just depends. We have to see what happens tomorrow. But I suspect in the short term, oil is going to be trading up. In the longer term, there is going to be some price pressure to get it back down to that lower trading range because of the amount of oil that's on the market and because the deterioration of the economy in China. Now, if China starts to reverse its economy, then it'll bid up the price of Brent, and then WTI will follow. So we'll see what happens. There has been for several weeks, there has been a move downward in oil. All right. But for the last few trading days, there's been an uptick. All right. So we'll see what happens. I think part of that is the announcement by OPEC that they're not going to increase production. And, the weakening of the dollar because of the Fed announcement. That might be another reason. It could be that it sold off so much over the several weeks that this is a bounce up. That could be too. So, but I think that in the short term, oil will go up, and meaning the next few trading sessions, and it may try to stabilize a ceiling and then come back down and try to establish a trading range for the floor. I think that trading range after the Fed announcement may be at around 73 to about 67 about 67 to 73. Could be even 75 to 68 as a trading range. So that's the oil. It looks like there was some sort of explosion in Lebanon.
Of the capital favor.
We spent so much time talking with experts about methods, strategies that Israel might use if there were a concerted retaliatory strike against Hezbollah or the opening of a new front. We've heard about cruise missiles, drones, maybe even boots on the ground, never pagers. Kaylee, this is a story that you wouldn't believe if you saw it in a movie, and we're still getting a sense of the scale of this attack.
Yeah, again, thousands injured, according to authorities in Lebanon. And of course, the use of pagers, in its very nature, this is older technology, right? they aren't using things like cell phones, things that could be easily
Exactly.
trackable and more hacked into. So the way in which this potentially all happened is a question that we'll all have to wait the answer to, as we'll have to await whether or not this is something that could be seen as escalatory by Hezbollah or by, of course, Iran, Hezbollah being a proxy of Iran. So we want to get some answers to our questions now and turn to Natasha Hall. She's senior fellow with the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and is joining us once more here on Bloomberg TV and radio. Natasha, welcome back. This is kind of you have to read about it and see the video to even believe this.
This is what
really
I'm talking
happened.
about. This is what I'm talking about. If there's some sort of an event risk that happens internationally, it may change the whole trading range of oil. All right.
2,800 injuries right now, 200 critically wounded. We have blasts as far as Syria, and even the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was injured. So it certainly harkens the notion that there might be some kind of escalatory attack for this quite embarrassing, to be honest, attack on Hezbollah operatives throughout the country in Lebanon and in Syria. It's unprecedented. I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this before. And as you mentioned, pagers are actually an old technology that Hezbollah operatives were encouraged to use because they are less hackable, less traceable. And so, we're all wondering sort of how Israel could have gotten into these pagers if they had infiltrated the supply chain, which would suggest even a kind of psychological operation on Hezbollah, where they will be highly suspicious of partners and members within their communities.
Pretty remarkable. Lebanon's telecom minister, Johnny Korm, suggesting that batteries on these devices likely overheated. He's calling it foul play, and Lebanon was quick to blame Israel, as we've been reporting. Would we expect Israel to take credit if that's in fact true?
I doubt Israel will take credit, but we do know that just yesterday they had accused Hezbollah of potentially assassinating a high-ranking Israeli military official. So this could have potentially been retaliation for that. But in all likelihood, this was a long way of planning something. These devices, this would have taken a great deal of intelligence work for months in advance.
Well, and it has been months now, Natasha, that we've been braced, waiting to see if Hezbollah was going to try to strike Israel directly, or Iran for that matter, for the assassination of Hezbollah commander earlier this summer, and then, of course, the subsequent killing of Hamas's former political leader in Tehran just days later. Is this likely to bring forward the timeline with which Iran or Hezbollah would consider that retaliatory strike actually taking shape? Because to this point, they've kept the world waiting.
It is possible, although, I think Hezbollah is significantly weakened right now. There are hundreds in hospitals right now. So physically and psychologically, they've been weakened as well. That said, again, this is quite an embarrassing attack on Hezbollah. And so they would be pushed, I think, to do something in response. What I would say is the most immediate fear for probably US officials is that they were struggling to get a deal on the table between Lebanon and Israel to really demilitarize the border area there in return for some kind of economic package for Lebanon, which has been struggling for a long time. And I doubt that deal is going anywhere anytime soon.
There's just a headline crossing the terminal now from Agence France Presse that you mentioned that Iran's ambassador to Lebanon was wounded in the pager explosion. This all happens as Antony Blinken sets off on his 10th journey to the region since October 7th. He's going to be in Cairo, we understand. And as Israel sends the message to Amos Hochstein, representing the Biden administration, that there is only a military solution to the north. Should Blinken be going to Israel on this trip? So far, he's not scheduled to.
So far, he is not scheduled to. And it's a good point that you make about Amos Hochstein, who just 24 hours ago was warning both Israel and Lebanon not to escalate the situation into a wider war. Blinken is scheduled to meet with primarily Egyptian and Qatari officials to get a new deal on the table to present to Hamas and Israel. But the administration is being very quiet about these talks now. They've sort of shifted strategies from being very, very public a couple of months ago about a potential ceasefire deal. And that tells me that they are, sort of not even cautiously optimistic, but they are hoping to be able to move forward on some kind of ceasefire deal, but it doesn't seem to be in the offing at the moment.
So in other words, Natasha, the longer this takes, which it's been months and months and months now, the less likely it is that it ultimately comes to fruition. I just wonder at what point, with a presidential election in the US 49 days away, they just say, all right, well, this administration has given it their best shot, but it's going to be up to the next president now.
I think that's what Netanyahu's calculus is exactly. And I think it's been his calculus, not just now, but maybe even a couple of months or 3 months ago, essentially waiting for the next US administration. It's no surprise to anyone that Netanyahu traditionally, at least in the past decade, has been supporting Republican presidential nominees and likely doesn't want to give Kamala Harris a win prior to the election. And he also has his own domestic political issues to deal with. So as much as he can push this out, probably the better for him.
To what extent is our election, if at all, here in the US playing into these negotiations? There's obviously a desire by some, including Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, to work with Donald Trump. And there are still some questions about the approach that Kamala Harris might take if she wins the White House. How do you see that dynamic?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu does not want to give a Democratic nominee the win and would probably prefer a President Trump. And giving them a ceasefire is a win for this administration. But it's also a loss for him in the immediate term. And so I think he's going to continue to try to push this out as much as he possibly can, which is one of the reasons, frankly, the administration was prioritizing this Lebanon-Israel deal. But now that also seems to be in critical condition as well.
Well, and as we consider the different relationships here, Lebanon and Israel, obviously Hamas and Israel and the ongoing ceasefire negotiations, and Iran itself, it raises the question of the other countries in the Middle East. Joe made the point here that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is specifically not going to Israel on this trip. He's instead going to Egypt, one of the mediators, along with Qatar. How should we be thinking about the evolution of their roles here if the U.S. is in question because of the election and the knowledge that the next president will not be Joe Biden?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I mean, Egypt is being heavily rewarded for its active diplomacy. It's going to have to be instrumental in any kind of peace agreement or ceasefire deal, as one of the sticking points is the Philadelphia corridor, which is along the border of Gaza, the Gaza Strip and Egypt. And the administration has also said that it will unlock a major aid deal to Egypt that it had been blocking because of human rights abuses. So Egypt has certainly, become more of a priority as these negotiations have gone on, in recognition that they will be very, very important moving forward.
I have to ask you about what's happening elsewhere in the region with regard to Iraq. And I bring this up today because the Iraqi Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, sat down with Bloomberg TV and had a message to send that it's time for American soldiers to leave, remembering there are 2,500 left who were put there to fight ISIS. Iraq is a different place now than it was, obviously, at the end of major combat operations and in 2014, when the fight against ISIS happened. How should the U.S. receive that message from Iraq?
We've been hearing this message for years now, and typically those who are close to Iran, the prime ministers that are close to Iran, reiterate this message over and over again. But what they say publicly and what they say privately tends to be different. And oftentimes prime ministers do actually want U.S. forces to stay for stability reasons. That said, obviously the pressure is accelerating to get U.S. forces out of Iraq and even out of Syria. But I do think that there are security obstacles to that, as we've seen in the past few months, with Iranian proxy forces really upping the ante in both Syria and Iraq. And we also have ISIS exponentially increasing their attacks in Syria compared to 2023. So the threat is not gone, but the pressure remains, of course, from Sudan for U.S. forces to withdraw.
Yeah. The threat is not gone. Natasha Hall, it's great to see you again, Natasha. Thank you for your time. Senior Fellow with the Middle East Program Center.
Thanks, Natasha. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplement that I have. It's a new product that I have on my store, olive leaf extract. You should be taking this every day, and it helps to boost your immune system and your cardiovascular system. How does it work? The olive leaf extract will help to lower that inflammation, so it helps to improve your immune system. And olive leaf extract will also lower LDL and increase your HDL levels to help improve your lipid profile. By doing that, you're helping your immune system and your cardiovascular health. This is a great product. It's a dual purpose supplement. I like providing dual purpose supplements because it takes less space for you, you know, in your household. But not just that, you get more bang for your buck. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Resveratrol, really important to add to your overall anti-aging protocol. It's synergistic with C60, ubiquinol, NAD+. It helps to get rid of senescent cells. So please go to my store and take the resveratrol that I offer. It's also an antioxidant. In addition, I take it every day. It's part of that whole big stacking anti-aging, boost up your immune system thing that I do, that I've been doing for a long time. So please go to my store and take the resveratrol and add it to your health stack. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. All right. I have a new product out on my store. It's nattokinase. Nattokinase will help to break up clots. It's fibrinolytic. In addition, at higher doses of nattokinase, you can lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Now, nattokinase is synergistic with olive leaf extract, but attacking it from another way to lower your LDL levels. So if you do these things to lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, you're not going to have to be on a statin. That's important. Why? Because if you have high cholesterol and you're put on a statin by your doctor, you're going to have, most people have side effects on statins if long-term use. You don't want to be on statins. You want to do this naturally. You can do it naturally by reducing your cholesterol in your food. So reduce the intake. Take foods like oatmeal to be able to bind some of the cholesterol, and you excrete it out through feces. And in addition, taking nattokinase will help to bring down the LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Nattokinase is synergistic with omega-3, and it's attacking everything in a different way. And when you do this all together, you're bringing down that poor lipid profile, so you improve your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take nattokinase every day. Vitamin K2, MK7. This is a vitamin that's new on my store. If you've been listening to me for a while, I've been telling you how to reverse plaque buildup and how to prevent plaque buildup by using vitamin K2, MK7. In addition, vitamin 2, MK7 helps to build better joints and bones. So it's a dual purpose. So please go to my store and get the vitamin K2. NAC. NAC is a supplement that I take every day. Why? It helps to boost up your glutathione levels. Glutathione is a strong antioxidant. It's synergistic with C60. You're attacking those free radicals in different vectors, and by attacking it from different angles, you're able to bring down those free radicals and improve the health and the health of the cell and the health of the mitochondria. So the NAC will help to boost up those glutathione levels, so so it can be a strong antioxidant. All right. In addition, it helps to detoxify your body. And NAC helps to improve mental health. It helps to improve some of the issues that people may have with ADHD or anxiety, helps to calm that down. So NAC, it's important to take every day to boost up those glutathione levels. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC, boost up those glutathione levels so you have another really strong antioxidant pathway. Vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is really important to absorb calcium. It's synergistic with vitamin K2, MK7 to help build bones and to improve your cardiovascular health. It's a gene expression cofactor. You need that so your cells are properly working. In addition, if you're sick and you have an infected cell and it needs to go into apoptosis, vitamin D3 helps to get that cell to die off, and it helps to clear an infection. This is why it's going to be really important during the cold season that you're taking vitamin D3. Trust me, because this cold season is going to linger for many people. NAD+, another great product that I have on my store. It's new. NAD+ helps to boost up your energy levels, and it helps to repair DNA damage. You have a DNA repair mechanism in your cells. NAD+ helps with that DNA repair mechanism. In addition, NAD+ helps with neural health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAD+.
I'm going to guess there is a spirited debate around that big table in the Eccles building at the Fed's headquarters about the size of that cut. Mike McKee is going to join us, Bloomberg's international economics and policy correspondent, along with Stephen Skanke. He's the chief economic advisor at Keel Point. And we're going to talk a bit about the market's expectations as well, and with our colleague Max Abelson, who's going to introduce us to Donald Trump's banker, the subject of Max's latest profile. But first, Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet for Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hi, thank you very much, David Gurrow. We have got the Dow, the S&P. They are both in the red right now. NASDAQ holding on to a gain of 23, up by about 0.1%. Bottom line here, stocks are struggling near records ahead of the Fed rate decision tomorrow. Traders split on the size of the central bank cut. That's coming up 24 hours from now. And of course, complete coverage on Bloomberg television and radio. Here's where we stand. S&P, little change, down 1 point right now. 56.31. We got the Dow lower by 8, down now by just about 0.1%. NASDAQ up 26 to the NASDAQ Composite Index, a gain right now of just about 0.2%. 10-year 3.64% with a 2-year that's now yielding 3.59%. Spot gold down $11 the ounce, tumbling by 0.5%. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil WTI up 1.7%, 71.32 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. Retail sales in the U.S. unexpectedly rose in August, supported by online purchases that masked more mixed results at other merchants. Among retailers today, Amazon shares, they're up 1.1%, truly a mixed picture, with Walmart right now down 2.5%, Macy's up 0.5%, Target, meanwhile, trading lower by 0.6%. For on-demand news, 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks very much. Dave Gurrow here with Bailey Lipschultz, filling in for Tim Stenevec and Carol Master on Bloomberg Business Week. Today and tomorrow, Federal Reserve policymakers are meeting in Washington, and I'll note this is the last meeting on the Fed's calendar before the U.S. election in November. The next meeting on that calendar kicks off the day after Election Day on November the 6th. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock Wall Street time, the Fed is expected to announce its cutting rates, maybe by a 0.25 percentage point, maybe by a half if some Democratic senators were to get their way by more than that. We're going to have to wait and see what the verdict is. Joining us now is Stephen Skanke, the Chief Economic Advisor at Keel Point. Steve used to work in the Treasury Department and was a staffer at the National Security Council. Steve, it's the parlor game of everyone's choice today, 25 or 50. I'd love to hear what your guess is, educated as it may be, what you think the Fed's going to do tomorrow.
Well, my best guess, well, first, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you, David and Bailey. My best guess is that it's going to be 25 basis points, as your team just announced. We had better than expected August retail sales and better than expected August manufacturing. So there's nothing to suggest that the economy is flailing. We also had the unemployment number fall back to 4.2% for August, and while there's clearly weakness in the job market, and the Fed is concerned about getting too far behind the curve on that, it still looks pretty good. So as not to warrant doing something that probably would spook markets if the Fed did a full 0.5% cut.
Well, that would be my question, Steve. What is the driver for a 50 basis point cut? A week ago, the swaps market was implying about a 25% chance of 50 basis points. Now we're at about 55%. So what is the market? What are market participants reading into that are making them, I guess, more optimistic or looking for a jumbo rate cut?
Well, they're trying to perceive whether the Fed thinks that it is too far behind the curve. We had no cut in July. At the end of July, some thought that they should have cut. Then there was what was a weak July jobs number.
They're not behind the curve. They're actually ahead because inflation is above the 2%. So you don't want to cut when the inflation is above the target. And unemployment rate is below natural unemployment. You would want to cut when unemployment is higher, or you do a cut when there is a rare economic banking crisis, right? But we don't have a banking crisis right now, and we don't have a gigantic economic downturn like a Lehman kind of event. We don't have that. They're ahead of the curve, and that's why I'll tell you, these people, they prefer a lower interest rate because they know these people, they get your investment dollars. All right, these are professional investors. All right, they run funds and all this stuff. They need a lower rate to have better leverage, to be able to take loans and have better leverage, and they know that when the Fed lowers rates, it eventually, that hot money moves into the equity market. And when it goes into the equity market, it's going to bring up the stocks. And they'll have a larger dollar amount that they'll receive for their fee because they charge a certain percentage of the fund. They have a fixed fee plus a certain percentage of an increase in the fund. Now, some of these people are fixed fees, but the point here is that the point here is that the more that they accrete, more money that they get from the investors to put into a fund, the more money they make. And when the interest rates go down, people are willing to leverage, and it's just a natural tendency for the market to go up. Now, it may not go up the day of the announcement, but the longer term trend, it goes up. That's why they're saying this. But if you really want to be honest about the economic data, the Fed is moving too early, not too late. I know I'm contrarian on this, but they're moving too early.
And the unemployment rate bumped up to 4.3, and there was a lot of angst about that. And the question is, even with the revisions to June and July data, is the situation in the job market as dire as some seem to think it might be coming when we have the July jobs numbers in August?
Steve, I'd love to ask you just about framing, and I guess the way in which this decision is going to be framed, pulling back a little bit, the way future decisions might be framed in light of who gets elected come November the 5th. But I think there was this kind of chorus of people saying over these last few weeks, if we get a jumbo cut, it's going to be a sign that the Fed is panicking, that there's some feeling there that it missed the ball, didn't cut rates as soon as it should have. How do policymakers deal with that, the kind of chorus of skepticism surrounding this? And then as I kind of pull back again, looking toward the election, this fear that the Fed might be seen as political, even if we hear over and over again from, I think you could say, an increasingly irritated Jay Powell, these allegations that, you know, this fiercely independent, historically independent entity is somehow political or doing something because of the political currents that we're seeing right now.
Well, of course, that's part of the challenge too, to think that they're being responsive to the political currents. On the other side of it, they don't want to do something, even if they thought that a half percent cut was justifiable. What does that signal in view of the positive economic data that we just had, both with unemployment going down, good jobs, good retail sales and manufacturing. On the other side of it, you have Governor Waller, who's been an advocate of making your first increase a significant one to capture not only the attention of the economic impact, but also the forward guidance aspect of it, and likewise on the cutting side, to have the first cut be a more dynamic cut, and so they're going to wrestle with that. They were, the minutes showed that they were actually sort of on the borderline as to whether they would cut at their end of July meeting. They decided not to, and that decision was fine. And then they had all of this second guessing that happened after that. So it's a tough decision for them. But as they parse through that, I think they also understand that a 0.5% cut would do what you just suggested, and that is signal that they know something that isn't otherwise known in the markets, and as a result, the situation is more dire than was otherwise thought, and what that would do to the markets and concerns and the impact on the political system.
And Steve, you mentioned Christopher Waller. Bloomberg has a story out this morning. Waller, seen as a potential Fed chair, won't welcome Trump's input that Christopher Waller may be the most confirmable candidate in a second Trump term. What do you make of the prospects of Waller as Fed chair?
It comes down to if Donald Trump is.
I don't really care. And so please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. This is a very strong antioxidant, and it is synergistic with many of the products that I offer, like with ubiquinol and CoQ10 and the resveratrol, even NAD+. When you take different types of antioxidants with C60, you are improving the ability of the cell to soak up those free radicals. Now, C60 is a very potent antioxidant, but it also is synergistic with things that are neuroprotective, such as the clarity factor, or the NAD+, or the ubiquinol, the active form for CoQ10. So please go to my store. I have lots of synergistic stacks to be able to improve what I'm talking about here. So please go to the store, get the C60. C60 is a buckyball. It's like a soccer ball molecule. It's 60 carbons linked together in a ball form. It's a very strong molecule that does not metabolize. All right. And so what happens is it's able to soak up those free radicals. All right. And it can recharge. Unlike vitamin C, and even resveratrol, it's only one molecule, so it'll soak up only one free radical. Well, C60, the way it's designed, it can neutralize those free radicals multiple times and recharge. All right, that's why it's so potent. So please go to the store and get the C60. It's dissolved in an oil because C60 is lipid soluble. right, so I have it in extra virgin olive oil, I have it in MCT coconut oil, and also in avocado oil. You take a teaspoon a day, every day, and that will soak up those free radicals, bring down that stress on the cell and boost up the mitochondrial health, and then you have more ATP. When you have more ATP for the cell, you have more energy for processing and for cellular metabolism, and with improved mitochondria and more ATP, you're going to improve your your neural health. So please go to the store and take this every day. Go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. I take this every day. It's part of my stack. All right. Again, the three main pillars: neutralize pathogens with structural nanosilver liquids and gels, take C60 and the other antioxidants that I offer on the store to bring down those free radicals and to bring down inflammation. You want to be taking like the turmerics, the ashwagandhas, the olive leaf extracts, right? Bring down that inflammatory response, the lignans. So please go to my store and get the C60. This is the end of my transmission for today. Hopefully you learned about how the markets are moving, how the dollar is going to be weakening, how maybe the oil market will be going up, at least in the short term. And there may be additional down pressure because of the amount of barrels of oil that are on the market. How the currency market's moving, the VIX is low, the equity market will probably increase after the Fed announcement. Again, there's going to be wild swings on the day of the announcement, before and after, but several trading days later, things will stabilize and there's going to be a movement upward. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get those supplements that I've been mentioning. Please ask your social media to follow me. I need a larger audience so I can help to teach people about what's going on in the financial markets, tell people what's going on in international affairs, and also how to improve your health. So I appreciate it if you reach out to your social media and ask them to subscribe to my channels and my X and GETTR feed. So thank you for listening and have a nice day.